Welcome to r/entitled people, where we share stories from your lives about people who think the rules don't apply to them and they should get what they want. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story. Because of my words about the bad attitude, this seller was fired. The second story. The HOA demanded that I replace my fence with a style they prefer, and I said no. My style of fence is grandfathered in, and they're gonna fine me a relatively small amount because the fence currently looks like SH, but I will be replacing it with that style they hate the moment I have the money to do so. The third story is, I quit because my boss is an a-hole. He also convinced his coworkers to leave with me. This will cause his business to collapse. The first story is, I too recently got a person fired. This actually happened to me last weekend, and I hate to be the person that caused someone to lose their job, but I feel like he deserved it. This involves me shopping for a car, and my purchase of one. I'm not a fan of long reads, so I'll try and keep this one short. I was recently in the market for a new car, and after some research and yearning, I had decided on my new car. Now, I was raised to never purchase things on credit, and so I saved for a while, and when I was ready to buy, I headed down to the local naughty dealership. Certified bank check for $60,000 in hand. That's what I decided I will pay. They can take it or leave it. I had my eyes set on their new coupe and planned on purchasing it that day. Now, I have somewhat of a baby face and look to be quite a few years younger than I am, and a lot of people are surprised at how old I am. Consequently, I get carded a lot, and that's been the extent of the hassle until today. I had spent 30 minutes wandering around the dealership and have yet to be approached. I'm always pretty patient, and they seem to be very busy, no worries. I approached what looked to be a secretary. She was behind a desk in front of all the salesmen's offices. I asked her if she could send a salesman my way when she got a chance, and let her know which car I was looking at and where I'd be around. After another 15 minutes or so, I was approached by a very young salesman, who right off the bat seemed to dread talking to me. We will refer to him as PF, Pretentious F, from now on. I never got his name. Here's how our conversation went to the best of my recollection. PF, I hear you've requested to speak to a salesman today. What is it you're in need of? Me, I actually am interested in one of your cars, and was wondering if we could take it on a test drive. I pointed to the one I had my eye on. PF, that's a very nice car, one of our most popular sellers. Unfortunately, we're pretty busy right now, and I need to check on a few other customers who are looking at some cars, and who might purchase a car today. He pointed to an older man and his wife looking at a sedan who had just walked in. Me, I'm a customer and had considered purchasing this car today. Unfortunately, I can't make that commitment until I test drive a car, and I have waited quite a while. While they just walked in. I would like to take this car on a test drive now. If you can't handle this request, please refer me to a salesman that can. PF, what is it you do for a living? Me, excuse me? PF, what is it you do for a living? Me, that is not relevant and none of your business. Can I please take this car on a test drive, or can you refer me to someone who can help me? PF, how can you afford this car? Me, what I do for a living and how much money I have is none of your concern. Your concern is to show me the car I've asked you to, and let me decide if I'd like to purchase it. So can we please go for a test drive, or can I speak with another salesman? PF, unfortunately I would have to run a credit check on you before we test drove that car, and I don't have time for that. I wish you the best of luck in your search, and you have a good day. He then proceeded to walk over to the new couple looking at the sedan. At this point, I didn't feel like speaking with anyone there anymore, or bother with the manager, so I left. I spent the next few hours at a few competitors' dealerships, and had test-driven a few, exchanged info with very friendly salesmen. I had another car that I really liked from a local mercenary dealership, but I couldn't settle for another until I had driven what I had my eyes set on. I drove about 30 minutes south of where I was to another naughty dealership. I ended up test driving the car I want, falling in love, getting it for the price I want, certified bank check goes a long way, and leaving the dealership in my new car. It took about 2 hours total. I spoke with the manager of this dealership, who came out to greet me after the test drive, and shared my previous experience at the other dealership. He apologized profusely, and said he would let them know. I thought nothing of it. Well, earlier this week I received a phone call from the manager of PF's dealership, who asked me to give my version of my trip to his dealership. He was very apologetic, got my info, sent me some coupons for oil changes and a few detailings, and said he would make sure to speak to PF, and make sure that didn't happen again. Well, come Saturday, I received my coupons, went in for a car detailing, and brought my girlfriend. She's considering buying a new car, and I've turned her on to Naughty. The receptionist recognized me while we were waiting and sent the manager my way. I talked to him for a while, and apparently PF was let go because of the incident, and the manager promised to be the one who took care of my girlfriend when the time comes for her new car. I think that dealership redeemed itself and would continue to do business there. I thought you guys would enjoy this story. God, what a mess. Looks like you did the dealership a favor. Who knows how many sales he lost? With that attitude, he must have lost so many potential customers. Like, just because you're young, he decided not to spend time with you? That is so arrogant. What does he care what the buyer looks like and what he does for a living? It's just unprofessional behavior. You have to indulge all his whims to make him happy, even if the customer doesn't buy anything. Who hired him for this job in the first place? And it was really cool to read, and PF deserves such punishment. Thank you for sharing. I would be tempted to wave that check in his face and walk away. The look on PF's face would have been priceless. The second story is, I scored a petty victory over my HOA. I've named several members of the board here who were specifically nasty to me. There were a total of 8 on the other side of this table, and they were all glaring at me towards the end like I just spit in their coffee. We've got Soy Boy, who's a dude in his 50s that clearly was getting off at this small amount of authority. Karen Prime, who made a comment about my vegetation that was unwarranted and exaggerated, after I told him I plan on building a newer version of my current fence. Decrepit Snake Karen, who had been nice to the point of annoying over the past 18 months or so. I've lived here, over for me to find out it was her, who has been taking pictures and originally filed the complaint. And Admin Lady, who I have zero problems with because she basically fed me the ammunition required to own these people. A few months back, I was cited for my 6-foot privacy fence looking disorderly. It's a valid citation as the fence is 20 years old, and I've wanted to fix it since the day I moved in 2 years ago. The only problem is that I'm recovering from a bankruptcy, and I won't get approved for an equity loan, or any loan really, until January of 2024, which will be 2 years after the discharge. With the citation from earlier this summer, I replied that I was unable to pay for a new fence at this time, and I asked for leniency until I could. They replied about a month later with summons to a hearing over this issue, which happened today. In the couple of weeks I had to prepare for this, I reached out to several companies to get quotes for a fence, exactly like the one I have now, so that I could present them with a realistic cost, and give a plan, and just sort of hope they'd not find me. While I'm in the meeting telling them about these options, Decrepit Snake Karen says they won't approve my style of fence, 6-foot privacy, and that's the majority of the problem. It took a minute for this to sink in what she had just said to me, and once it did I had some questions. I asked why then on their original citation that I have the option to repair this fence. This is the point in which Karen Prime effed up. She tells me that the HOA in 2005 mistakenly approved the previous homeowner's requests to build a privacy fence, and that this HOA board would never approve such a fence. This led me to another question. Is my privacy fence grandfathered in with their decision? They said yes, but how are you supposed to fix this in 60 days if you don't have the money? I told them that I really like this type of fence, and I don't want to replace it with one of their options. They told me they were only approving those 3 to 4 foot tall fences that use the wire screens in between the 3 cross posts. At this point, I asked them why they're citing me in the first place when a house in our neighborhood sold for $55K, over the asking price a few months back, which clearly indicated to me that no one is taking the condition of my fence into serious consideration before buying. This really peeved off Soy Boy, the lone male member of the board, who responded that we were done arguing about this and that the HOA will be taking action in 60 days by fining me $10 a day. That's about $3,600 over the year, so I'm thinking I'm just going to have to get effed at this point. That is until the admin lady at the end of the table pipes up that the maximum fine is capped at $900. This also takes a minute to register for me because these repairs for a fence that I don't want to own would probably cost between $3 to $4K. I just realized I forgot to mention that the fence I want would cost just under $10K. At this point, I tell them that $900 is cheaper than making their requested repairs for a fence I don't want. They kinda stare at me with a bit of malice knowing that I have them by the balls. After about 7 or 8 awkward seconds, Soy Boy says that the board will fine me accordingly, in 60 days, if I do not take action by then, and that I was dismissed. The admin lady pipes up again that they actually have to vote on this decision real quick. Haha. Karen Prime seconds Soy Boy's motion to make that decision. They vote unanimously, and I leave smug as F knowing that they'll have to look at my SH fence for another year and some change, and then watch as I build another 6-foot privacy fence when I'm eligible for an equity loan. If your posts are still healthy, and they can be healthy even after 20 years, it's really not that hard to rebuild your own fence. It's a lot of work though. It's really just boards nailed on top of other boards that go between the posts. Doing one panel at a time is pretty cheap, And you can push HOA away by saying, "Repairs in progress, stop being unreasonable." Refinishing a fence is a lot of manual work, but it's not a difficult job. Paying the company to rebuild the fence is mostly labor. I believe the materials are a third of the regular price, and they don't recycle any of it. That way you'll have a new fence. The HOA can't do anything, as you didn't put in a new fence, but just repaired an old fence that was already approved. And the last story is, I'm leaving one of the most openly toxic employers I've ever had the displeasure of working for, and I'm taking the company down with me. I've got 4 days left of the 2-week notice I gave, and I can't wait for it to be over. I was doing administrative and data entry work for a small contracting company of 7 people. The work we do is very lucrative due to being highly specialized and federally regulated and mandated. Lucrative for the owner at least. He pays everyone else in pocket change while he sits on his A in his 6,000 square foot home. He pays his most highly certified and experienced technician, the person who's the entirety of his business, less than you can make working customer support from home. In the roughly month I've worked there, I've taken the blame for the owner's personal mistakes and been threatened to not be paid because of it. I've heard him threaten other employees with similar, also threatening to fire them if they didn't help him move out of his previous mansion into his newer, larger one, in less than 2 days for $5 less an hour. His failure to get his stuff out of the house would have resulted in yet another lawsuit. I've spoken to former employees that he's sued for quitting, and confirmed this with current employees. I printed out a new employee packet for the high schoolers he moronically thinks he can replace us with, that includes such gems to sign as, if you lose a pair of work gloves, $10, a pair of goggles, $8, etc. We will pursue theft charges with the police, and take $50 per item from your pay, and police charges with a $200 fine for any lost keys. I've spent the last week pointing all this out to my coworkers, keeping them in the loop of all the idiocy I've personally had to deal with, shown them easily obtainable education opportunities they didn't know about, told them about a myriad of better paying positions, and convinced the 2 most vital technicians who also leave, effectively ending the business, which will void his current contracts, and likely lead to several lawsuits, that he took with no regard for what was physically possible for techs that were already working over 12 hours a day to try to keep up with. It couldn't happen to a more deserving guy. Update. I've been offered a similar position in a different industry, to work from home for 30% more than what I'm making now. At the request of the co-owner and the remaining techs, I offered to stay for a few dollars more than that, was laughed at and offered a 50-cent increase of what he's currently paying me. The chief tech, who does virtually all the work that makes the business money, also got an offer with a 50% pay increase as well as benefits, which our dear leader doesn't provide his full-time employees. Small business owners can be incredibly toxic. Also understand that contracts are not binding. If he grossly overcharges for replacement goods, it will not hold up in court if he is sued. If he's made a habit of suing former employees, there's no bigger red flag than that. Get out of there and take as many people with you as you can. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.